What's up, guys? My name is Martin. Welcome back to Excel Walk. Today I'm going to be walking you through how to use Report Slicer when you have a pivot table. The great thing about Report Slicer is that you can use them for each and every occasion. You can use them under different criterias, and all of them will help to make your work look neat and advanced. So I'm going to show you how to create a pivot table out of this table and then get a slicer. So I'm just going to select my table and then I'm going to head over to insert and then I'm going to choose pivot table, which will bring up this pop-up. So everything is okay the way it is, so I don't want to change anything. And now I need to put my data. So I'm going to put my data here. Amount is value, so I'm going to put it on the value section. Buyer is an information channel, so I'm going to put it on the rows. And then the type, I want it to categorize or to distinguish. And then the date, now the date, I don't want to add it here. I want to add it on the slicer. So having done that, I'm just going to head over here and click slicer. Now for slicer, you can get it over at the analyze section. You can use slicer or a timeline. These two go hand in hand with pivot tables because you might have a lot of data that has been summarized, but you actually want to summarize it further using these two tools. Now, a slicer helps you to filter your data visually and also makes it easier and faster to filter pivot tables, pivot charts, and cube functions. So let me just head over here and click date. So this is what I will want to use on the filter. So I'm just going to press OK. And you realize now you have a filter here, which makes your dashboard or your report look advanced and able to help someone interpret based on the information that is here. So if I were to choose maybe 1st of Jan, now you'll see that the information changes here. Let's say I want to choose 15th of Jan. You'll see the same has happened here. What about 17? You'll see the same is happening. So this is the use of a pivot table. And the beauty about using such a slicer is that it allows you to add more pivots onto it. So let's say maybe I added another pivot here. So I'm just going to copy this and put it here. Like let's say now this one, I just wanted to know maybe the the buyer and the amount, and maybe on this one I only had the the type here. So as you can see, now when I change here, you'll notice now it is changing on both of them. That's because the report connection that is affiliated with this report slicer knows very well that we have obtained this second pivot from this first pivot. So it's going to maintain that report connection. Well, what if you had another pivot table that was not connected to this slicer and yet you wanted to connect it to this slicer because it had the same information? So let's go ahead and create another table and bring it back there. So I'm going to click here, insert a different pivot table. And then on this time, I'm going to choose existing worksheet because we want it to appear on sheet 2. So I'm going to click here and proceed with doing the necessary. So I'm going to put here amount, and then I'm going to put maybe buyer. The buyer we are putting there so that it can count. So and then I'm going to put, no, let me just put the type there, and then the buyer I'm going to put here. Yes, just like that. So when I click here, you'll notice that that pivot table, the last one that we have added, is not changing. So how do you add it there? So you'll just come here and right click on the pivot on the slicer, and then you're going to head over to this section called report connections. Once you're there, all you need to do is just check the pivot table that you have added. And as you realize, we had only two pivot tables. This was pivot table 1 and this other one was pivot table 2. Now we have added pivot table 3, but as you can see, it was not selected. So we have selected here. And let's say if you had multiple pivot tables, How would you know where they exist? So we are going to cover that in a few. So as you can see, I've selected here, and as you can see, it gives us the information of that sheet. So in this case, we are in sheet 2. So it's going to show us all the pivots that are in sheet 2. And if you wanted to add maybe a pivot that is on another sheet, that will also come in handy because it will show you. You can have a pivot here, appearing here or here, and also obeying the being able to be controlled by this report slicer. So as you can see now, all of my pivot tables are functioning as expected. You are able to know just what type of information you wanted to know. So let's say we changed something here. Maybe we added the same details here. So I'm just going to do that. And then when I come to 17th Jan, you realize that it has not changed. So this is a flaw that is evident in pivot table. So the only way to make sure that your pivot is actually referring to the updated table, all you need to do is to right click and hit refresh. So you can do this only on the pivot table, because if you came here and hit refresh, this is just a data source. This does not have any formulas apart from being just a smart table. So the only way you can refresh your pivot to pick up what was added, just come here and right click and hit refresh. Once you do that, you realize that our table now shows 2 here, and also the amount has doubled from 20 to 40. And as you can see, now it is showing us the correct information. Well, that's all for today. Hope you learned something new. If you like this video, you can leave a thumbs up and to help us in the YouTube algorithm, and to also help this video to help others. And if you have any comments or suggestions on which kind of video you'd like to see next, you can leave them down below and I'll be happy to reply. Until next time, cheers.